I am the Utah County Republican Party Chair. We are very excited to have these candidates here. We have asked them, and they were all so gracious and super quick replied and said we would love to be here on a Friday night and joining us. And I asked Chuck Wood, our Vice Chair, if he would moderate this. And so we have some thoughtful questions that we put together, and then I will go through the questions that you guys have. If they're not repeated in the questions that we're already asking or close to it, then we will use the remainder of the time to do that. So, hello, come in. Hi, Leah, hi, Matt. Welcome, find a seat. Adam, are you ready? Okay, you're fine. Yes, Chris.
Do you have a clear box full of money?
Yes.
Donation to the party?
Yes, Utah County. Yes. Yeah, we keep it like that. We think the money attracts some money. No, and with our booths for our meet and greets, what we've done is we've had candidates just contribute to our donation box in order to help pay for the schools. So if you feel so compelled and you have a little bit of cash on you, Mike will happily point you toward the donation box. That's kind of his role. So,
Do you have a Venmo thing to scan on there?
no, but we will soon.
Okay.
So yeah, that's in the works. Adam, you just tell me whenever you're ready, and we will.
Just remember, cash is king.
I understand that, sir. I do.
Here's my question.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's my stuff.
Okay,
Just about.
you're fine.
So, maybe we'll see freezing.
No worries. I'll tell you guys a couple of the stuff that we have happening that's a little bit in the works. I found out yesterday that Cedar Valley, we're going to do a meet and greet out west. We had put that there was going to be one out west, and then we've been working with the school to try and figure out. So we have Cedar Valley on the 11th of April, and that's in the Commons in the cafeteria area. We're trying to get a debate out there. We've also got a commissioner debate, and Skylar is with us tonight. That is at Provo High School on the 10th. And so we're super excited about that one. Like as a county, we are very excited to have those commissioners. So if you are from Utah County, that will be on the 10th. Utah County Republican Women has one on the 8th, Monday the 8th at noon. So if you want to go see that. Anyway, a lot of things happening. We'll keep putting them on the calendar. All right, Adam, you're good?
Yeah, we're recording.
Oh, all right. Okay, well, I will turn the time over to Chuck. Our three candidates will introduce themselves. They have a 1-minute opener, and then we will do the questions, both the ones we've given them and then the ones that you guys have submitted, and then they have a 2-minute closer. If they are personally mentioned, then they have a 1-minute rebuttal, only if they're personally mentioned. And Mike is going to be our good timekeeper, and I think he's figuring that out right now. Or he's getting a call.
I'm just looking for a good sit down.
Very good. All right, Chuck, you're up. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Is this, oh, it is on. Okay, so one other thing I'm just gonna mention is we're gonna start with Monica, and then Camille, and then Matt. And so when I ask each question, what we'll do is we'll start with you, and then on the next question we'll start with you, and then the next question we'll start with you. And that way everybody gets a chance to have an equal shot at answering first or answering last. Does that work? All right, well, we'll start with you, Monica, with your introduction.
First of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight. It's really wonderful to see you. My name is Monica Wilbur, and I am a former English teacher and debate coach. I am a current candidate for State Board 10 district race and for education, of course. And I am an always mom and advocate of parents who have concerns about where public education is going and have taken those concerns to the state board, and those concerns have fallen on deaf ears. And that's not okay. And I have spent the past 2.5 years of my life and dedicated thousands upon thousands of hours advocating for parents and advocating to get the things out of our schools that simply don't belong there. We have destructive DEI, we have intrusive SEL, we have aggressive activism. And it's not okay, again. And these are things that we need to be focusing on and on eliminating from our schools, as well as providing sound foundational academics and constitutional principles for our kids. And I hope I have your support at the end of the night. Thank you.
I want to echo what Monica said as well. Thank you for attending tonight. I'm Camille Knudson, and I'm thrilled to actually be running for state school board. I'm running because I want to enhance the effectiveness of our state school board. I want to improve educational outcomes, and I want to free classrooms from unnecessary micromanagement. A little bit about myself: I'm not just a candidate, I'm also a dedicated wife and a proud mother of 3 incredible children. My eldest son, who is a Marine and also married, is based in North Carolina. I know I don't look like I'm old enough to have a married kid, but I do. My middle son is a towering 6'5" high school freshman. He loves all things football. He's also fluent in German, thanks to the dual language immersion program. And then my youngest daughter, who is of course the princess of our family, has recently found a passion for basketball. My journey in education governance has been marked by significant achievements. While serving on the Tooele County Board of Education, we secured funding for 3 new schools with a 0 net tax impact. We improved teacher retention, and I revised policies to enhance educational outcomes across our county, especially in the rural areas. In my current role, or my day job, I'm a policy analyst for the Department of Agriculture and Food. Thank you.
1 minute now.
I know, I can keep going.
Quite quick, yes. Thank you to the Utah County GOP for putting this event on. Thank you for being here. My name is Matt Hymas. I have spent my entire career in education. I've worked as a teacher, math department lead, coach, junior high principal, athletic director, assistant director, high school director, superintendent of schools, and state board member. I have seen education from almost every angle. As a math teacher, I saw the direct challenges that students faced on a daily basis. However, I also saw the confidence and self-worth that students obtain through academic success. As a coach and board member, I see the value of different skills and characteristics come together to create something amazing. As an administrator, I listened to and heard the needs of parents. I worked closely with them to ensure that their children were getting the education that they needed in preparation for adulthood. As a member of the USBD, I have worked behind the scenes to bring conservative values into board rule and policies. I love education, and I love the great state of Utah. It is my goal to preserve our Utah values within our education system.
All right, our first question is, what are your thoughts on Common Core as a whole? And has it created subjective or objective standards? We'll have Camille start this one.
So my thoughts on Common Core: of course I am for local control, and I don't agree with Common Core being forced down onto our schools and our education system. I do like that some things that Common Core provide consistency with educational standards throughout the state, and more importantly, the country. I do think the basic Common Core standards can be objective of what students can accomplish per grade level, but I think it's the implementation that's subjective. And I think that's where we need to work with our local school boards on the implementation of the curriculum, of what's happening in our schools and in our classrooms, and helping our local school boards really work with the communities and the parents of understanding what needs to happen inside the classroom.
Yep.
Okay, I'll just use this one, you're good. So, thank you. Common Core obviously created objective standards. Now, in my opinion, it's kind of destroying our educational foundation. Not a fan of Common Core. I'll use math as an example, because I came from the math classroom. Rather than teaching math facts and building upon a foundational knowledge, we're asking our 6 and 7-year-olds to use logic in solving simple arithmetic, right? We're spending so much time on figuring out 2 plus 3 rather than just saying 2 plus 3 is 5. So, one of the examples that I saw semi-recently was I was looking at a curriculum, and it said, had two numbers that added to 20, and it wanted these first and second graders to discuss for about 10 minutes different things that added up to 20. And I thought, oh my goodness, we're losing so much time because of this kind of ideology and going in and saying, hey, let's let them figure it out. Well, there's times to let them figure it out, but there's also times to teach. And I think that those early years are crucial for that. Thank you.
Okay, so the first thing about Common Core is that these are nationalized standards. So you can't claim to be for local control and in the same breath claim to be for nationalized standards. It just doesn't work that way. The second thing about Common Core is that these are very subjective standards, not objective standards. And by subjective, I mean they are entirely centered around the National Education Association's 21st century skills, which are communication, critical thinking, creativity, and, oh, the last C. I always like mess up on the last C. The last C is communication, thank you. Yes, and so when you have this type of subjectivity entered into the curriculum, this creates confusion for parents and it creates confusion for students. It actually works against students' best interests. Common Core is not pro-student, it is pro-control. And that's something we need to get away from. So if the state board were really interested in getting rid of Common Core, they could have done this yesterday, but they haven't.
All right, our next question is, this is a little bit long, so student data hubs have been adopted by many districts. What protections have been put on this data, and will the data be deleted after students graduate? Does it have the potential for our students' past to influence their future? And do you see any potential that data could be used outside of the school system? We'll start with Matt.
Thank you. This was an interesting question because you're asking state level to talk about district adoption of data hubs, right? Or taking on data hubs. I don't know. I mean, that's the short answer. I know you didn't write this question, but I don't know what your districts are doing. I would encourage you to talk to your local school boards. And you talk about, now this talks about what do they do with it? Does it have the potential for a student's past to influence their future? It could. We've seen instances where people will categorize via data without looking at the individual. They'll say that, well, they are Hispanic or Black or Native American, so they must fall here. I don't think that's right. I think we should look at the child and look at the academic needs of the child. So gathering data, I think I have a different idea of what kind of data should be gathered. And then as far as it following them out into adulthood, I haven't seen personally where it has affected that, and maybe you have. Teach me something, right? Let's converse on that. Find me afterwards, we'll talk about it, but I haven't seen it.
So the student data hubs by the districts, all that data is designed to flow into the Utah State Board's USIMS, which is the Utah Students Information Management System. This is information that is perpetual in nature. In other words, this data is designed to follow the students out of high school and through their workforce and through their college experiences. In fact, we're seeing new transcripts being developed throughout the state in use by 100 schools and accepted by 7 universities. It's called the Mastery Transcript. And this is extremely invasive and intrusive data. It is social emotional learning data, where a student's deeper learning and empathy and cultural responsiveness is being measured and tracked, not only into the future, but also into the past. Because in order to get this data, teachers are asked to ask students, can you find out any information, can you tell us any information that would apply to this particular competency that we are measuring. It's a bad idea, and this is something we need to protect more for our students.
When I first saw the question, I had similar thoughts as Matt. I wondered what the data hubs really had to pertain to. I know some districts have Skyward or different databases that contain student information. And I went back to a story actually that my husband told me as we were driving down here. He worked with a gentleman who was looking to get a raise at his work, and he needed to show that he had a higher level of education than I think just a high school diploma. And he went back and couldn't find his high school transcript. So he had to go back to his school that he went to school at, and they didn't have his high school transcript because the school had been torn down and moved. So I think there's a very fine line when it comes to data and the balance of what schools have and what they don't have. I think we need to protect our students' data, at the same time being aware of how that can impact them in the future. And more importantly than that, I can name at least 3 bills that will pass this legislative session that support and protect data as well.
All right, the next question is, and we'll start with Monica this time. If competency-based education continues, will it eventually require an IEP for every student that will most likely have to be met through tech or AI?
Okay, absolutely. First, I want to define what competency-based education means. A competency is a student's subjective social emotional skills. So it's their skills, their attitudes, their dispositions. This has nothing to do with objective academics. So competency-based education is bad. It's not a good thing. And the design of competency-based education is totally geared towards measuring, tracking, informing, and shaping these competencies individually for each student. And the only way that can be done is through tech. So make no mistake about it, tech is going to be integral in measuring these competencies and in keeping, again, a permanent record for students. This is not something we want. It's intrusive and it's invasive. And we need to get back to foundational academics and not mess with these kids' minds.
There's a second part to that question that talks about an IEP. An IEP is an individualized education path. Of course, if you look that up and you work with your teachers or your administrators, you know that the parent is involved with an IEP, the student is involved, and those students have to be eligible students in order to be on an IEP. There are certain requirements that come with an IEP, and that cannot be fulfilled through tech or AI. At least that was my experience with my son when I worked with his teacher about having him on an IEP. We chose not to because I was the parent and I didn't feel that was the path that was best for my student. And I think that we're not giving enough credit to our parents being involved with our students' education and being able to decide whether an IEP would be part of their education path or not.
Thank you. Yes, if competency-based education continues, one, no, it will not require an IEP for every student. And two, yes, it will most likely have to be met through tech and AI, and it already is. I've seen it in different districts. I went down to JUAP, they're doing competency-based. Quite frankly, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big supporter of it. I don't think it works like the traditional model does that I prefer. But yeah, to answer the question, yeah, it's going to take tech. It's one-to-one, and we have a teacher shortage already, right? So if we're just thinking logically here, yes, no, it won't require an IEP for every student. Yes, it will take tech and AI. But I don't like it. I can feel my seconds with that. I don't like it.
All right, the next question, and we're starting with Camille this time. Do you think SEL programs teach students to focus on the positive or negative more?
So I think both. I think SEL programs really are working with your local school boards. I'm thinking about, in the last few years, we actually had a student that was bullied at one of our charter schools and ended up taking his life. So at the time, yes, that social and emotional learning program had to focus on some really hard and difficult concepts for those children. Now, every week that my child comes home or is learning about social and emotional learning, it is not always about the hard topics. There are some different aspects of SEL, but I really believe that's up to what our local school boards feel is best with their communities, working with their parents and their local schools of what their communities need at the time.
Thank you. I struggle with SEL programs similarly to the last one-to-one stuff. You know, I don't like it. So SEL programs, for me, it's not that they're teaching positive or negative. I mean, that's going to depend on whoever's hearing it and teaching it. In my opinion, though, the best social emotional learning that a child can get is finding success in academics. If I can teach a kid to read, write, and do math, I see more self-confidence from that kid than most anything else will bring for that child. When a child is struggling emotionally, and it happens, then we reach out to the parents. We say, what's going on? How can we help? Right? That's what we do. We work with parents. The parents know the child better than the school does. We need to understand that as educators. They are the front runners for their children's social and emotional learning. Thank you. No applause for that? Yeah, that was good. I know it was good. It's okay.
My hands are full.
I know this is a biased audience.
Okay, so the first thing I want to make extremely clear is that social emotional learning is key. It is absolutely central to the board's strategic plan. So if you at any point as a board member supported Portrait of a Graduate or personalized competency-based learning, if you had voted for those, then you are supporting social emotional learning. In fact, you're supporting it in replacement of foundational academics because social emotional learning tends to displace the time that it takes to teach fundamental academic skills. You can't do it all, and as a teacher, that's not your job. I don't hire a teacher to teach my kids how to be empathetic or how to feel about certain topics and whether those topics align to diversity, equity, inclusion, or social justice. And so I would just like to say that the state board has definitely dropped the ball on social emotional learning, and it's more negative than positive.
It's not the same thing. All right, the next question, and we're starting with Monica this time. Many science classes now have students picking an environmental issue and doing a project to fix this problem. Do you see this as creating activists for political issues?
Absolutely. Project-based learning or problem-based learning makes kids agitate for social change. And so a few of the examples I've seen are where you've had students up in Park City who were asked to go around during lunchtime kind of policing their fellow students' lunch trays to make sure that there wasn't enough, or there wasn't a lot of food waste. We've seen kids who've been asked to actually eat bugs in order to save the environment. Project-based learning is activism, and it also falls under the title of civic activism. And what this does is it kind of puts our kids in the forefront of again, agitating for social change, but it makes it difficult for people who are the target of this social change to push back because it's kids leading the charge. And so the people who are supportive of this social activism are essentially using the kids as human shields for their agendas. It's not okay.
seen kids eating bugs, but I have, and actually when I first read the question, I guess my question was about science classes and picking an environmental issue. So I actually did reach out to the Tooele County local school board and asked them if this was happening in our science classes, and they said no, they're not asked to create this kind of a project. And I also reached out to some of the other parents and asked if their children had been asked to do any of these things. So I do know that as a party, being more involved with environmental issues is something that will be, that some of the party is focusing on. I know legislators during the general session started the Environmental Stewardship Caucus, where they would meet every other Tuesday morning and meet with different stakeholders and talk about some of the environmental issues that are happening along our state. So I think it kind of a double-edged sword of, I'm not sure where it's happening in classrooms, but I also can see our focus adjusting more as we move forward with it.
Thank you. I guess that in response to that question, do we have environmental issues? Yeah, you can't deny that. Do we want them to be fixed? I hope so. And are we going to wait until our children become adults to do so? Did our parents wait? Now, here's the thought process though. I absolutely want appropriately aged students to consider these issues. That doesn't mean they have to eat bugs or be on lunch patrol, but they need to have a discussion. Absolutely. They need to be prepared for adulthood because that's what's coming at them. And so for us to say, oh, well, we don't want you to make any change, you can do that later on in life. We're too late. We need to do something. Now again, appropriately aged, and I hope that educators can see what that means in local school boards. Here's the thing with science though. In science, we should teach science as science. This isn't to be politicized. Science is should not be a political thing, but it should be science taught as science. That was good too, by the way.
All right. Okay.
She's ready. Yeah.
All right. What is your view on standardized testing? ACT, SAT, AP tests?
Here's the really quick, easy answer. It's a necessary evil. I don't like them. I don't enjoy them. I know I don't enjoy testing. I know my children don't enjoy testing. I don't know how we can improve if we don't have a baseline to start from. So they, necessary evil.
Yeah, these tests, they're driven by higher ed. I mean, I guess if we can control the higher ed and say, hey, our kids are not going to do this, we'd be put at a disadvantage. So I'm not sure what you want to hear from this. To me, this isn't a political thing. It's testing to get them into higher ed, which I can't control. So let's talk about it sometime. I'll see what I can do, but I'm sure there's going to be an answer that you'll applaud for. Thank you.
The biggest problem with standardized testing is that teachers align the curriculum and the instruction throughout the year to standardized tests. That means teaching is a means of test prep. And this robs our kids of what I believe is a well-rounded and a just more a Renaissance type of education, right? Because they are being taught to take a test. And so much time of teachers is being dedicated to this, to prepping the kids for the test. And what if the kid opts out of the test at the end of the year? Well, I've seen it in my own kids' district where the kids were asked to go take tests that were given by the district that aligned with the statewide assessments. So essentially, they're using these tests, these standardized tests, to get data from our kids. And if you feel about data like I feel about data, I feel like that belongs to the student, and they can never use it to help a kid actually make progress from year to year. They just use it to justify more supports and psychological interventions, etc. So I'm not a fan of standardized testing, the way it's implemented in our schools.
next question is, if districts and teachers continue to use outsourced programs for all subjects, will a teacher end up as a facilitator of technology programs? And do you think these companies have a political bias?
So, first off, I hope that the teacher is never replaced, of course. As an educator myself, it shouldn't happen. Teachers should be the masters of their content. A student, parent for that matter, should have the confidence to approach their teacher for help and receive help, not be referred to some AI system or, hey, go check Khan Academy or something, right? That's not what it's about. So I don't believe a teacher should be or could be replaced by AI videos or other programs. And when I say I don't believe they could be, in order to keep education effective, I don't believe they could be. As far as the political agenda, these companies, it's about a financial agenda. Let's be realistic. They're trying to make money. And if they know they can get the most money from some governmental push, that's what they're going to do. So to me, this isn't about political, this is about money. We've seen it with DEI, SEL, Common Core, but it's my job to do what I can to keep these ideologies out of Utah and continue to support Utah values.
If we want to keep these technology companies out of Utah, then the state board has to stop voting for these contracts. We're talking multi-million-dollar contracts, and they keep getting voted on again and again and again. There's only one member who consistently pulls these types of contracts from the consent calendar, and I'm not sitting with that member at this table right now. And so what I want to say about outsourced programs for teachers is that these programs are called turnkey programs. In other words, they're designed to save the teacher instructional preparation time. 5 minutes in front of the computer, pushing a few buttons, and suddenly you have a curriculum that's ready-made for kids. That cuts out the parent and it cuts out the teacher. You don't know what's being taught on these programs. It's half the time, if not more than half the time, it's dynamic content that's generated on the fly. All of this is not good for our kids. And is there a political bias? Absolutely. These companies are aligning again their curriculum to DEI, to SEL, to social justice causes. Thank you.
I'll make my answer short and sweet, actually. So, COVID taught us time and time again that you cannot replace a teacher. We saw it every single day, and every time we closed down schools, and every time we opened it back up, and we're still seeing it now with my daughter's in kindergarten when COVID first hit, and you can see the deficiencies of what she did not learn by not being with her teacher on a daily basis. So to answer the question about continuing to use outsourced programs, I know when I was on the Tooele County School Board, I was bombarded on a monthly basis from vendors trying to get me to sign up for different programs and different things. It is one of the hardest things to have a vendor sign up with the school district, and same with the state programs. With that being said, again, it does not replace the teacher. We don't want it to replace the teacher because we know our student success is based off of that student and teacher relationship.
Matt, you just singled out in Monica's response there. Do you want a minute to respond?
I'm trying to remember what it was.
She mentioned something about the consent agenda with
Oh,
contracts.
yeah. Contracts, right? Signing contracts or voting to approve contracts. Here's what I know what has to happen with education. It has to keep moving forward. And so what I did was, again, thank you. I went to our superintendent who's over all this. And I said, hey, I don't like this stuff. Do we get to select, as Utahns, what we pull from these programs? She's like, absolutely. So I guess my analogy is, okay, you don't like fishing. Does that mean you can't shop at Sportsman's Warehouse? Right? This stuff is there. That's who's building these curriculums. That's who's helping with these contracts. And it's not even to say that LEAs have to use them, because we believe in local choice. But we're trying to give something so that education can move forward. I'm not about voting no on everything. It doesn't even matter what it is, it's just a no vote. I'm not about that. I'm about keeping kids educated.
All right, our next question is, I'm gonna go for one that I hear people talking about a bit. Should boys and girls have segregated bathrooms, sports, and locker rooms? I think it's Monica's.
I went first last time, so.
Okay. Absolutely, this is an unequivocal yes. We should have sex-segregated bathrooms, sports, locker rooms. The fact that it is even a debate right now should cause us all a lot of concern about where our culture is. Unfortunately, we have the Biden administration's new interpretation of Title IX to include the definition of sex to be expanded out to gender identity. And this has put Utah in a really hard position because you have districts who are sitting here trying to basically thread a needle, and a lot of times they err on the side of gender identity because they don't want the federal government to come down on them. This isn't okay because it is sex-based discrimination to not provide sex-specific spaces to our girls and boys. Thank you.
I do agree with Monica on this. I think bathrooms should be sex-segregated spaces. I also really appreciated Representative Birkeland's bill, House Bill 257 as a bathroom bill. In its original form, talking of safe, single spaces for the user. I thought that there was some important parts of that bill that could have been implemented on lots of different avenues or places. So yeah, I do agree as well that they need to be sex-segregated spaces.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy, right? Yes, absolutely yes. I'm not just talking about bathrooms, I'm talking about sports, and I'm talking about locker rooms. I have a daughter who was an athlete. I was an athlete. My sons are athletes. We're now hearing the testimony of the swimmer. I should know. She's on the tip of my tongue. Riley Gaines, right? Heartbreaking. Just heartbreaking. In fact, I couldn't even finish an article. I was just sickened by it. And then for people to say, no, it's cool. I know I'm getting off topic here. I love Parks and Rec. I laughed when they made Ron Swanson the Woman of the Year. Who knew it was going to be a reality, right? It's like, what is happening in society when we are taking men, identifying as women, and holding them up above all other women? It's not right. It's not right.
All right, the next question is, teacher collaboration through the PLC program. What is gained and what is lost?
So, as I read through this question, I thought about all different industries, and then I also thought about just our legislators and the different requirements for continued education and collaboration throughout the state. And I'm surprised that education, I know that there's been issues with PLCs, and I've also heard that PLC, if it's done incorrectly, teachers really struggle. If it's done correctly, it's the greatest thing ever. Do I believe in collaboration with teachers? Absolutely. I think they can work with each other, and they can take the best things that other teachers are doing and implement it in their own classrooms, and there could be a lot of good things that come from the PLCs. But again, if they're done incorrectly, that can also create lots of issues and problems within a school.
Thank you. Yeah, teacher collaboration through the PLC program. What is gained, what is lost? Well, what's gained is perspective. I mean, you sit down, you visit with the teacher. I don't know how many of you are sitting down with 30 kids for 8 hours a day. It's rough sometimes. You need their perspective, so let's not cut them out. The other thing, though, what's lost is that, quite frankly, that perspective can carry. And sometimes we kind of lose our voice thinking, I don't run around with 30 kids right? So we kind of just step back and we don't put forward what is on our mind, what we're seeing at home. So I think we need to have a good balance. But again, what's gained is perspective. What's lost is possible domination of the meeting. So. That one doesn't deserve applause.
The professional learning communities are forced collaboration, and I want to repeat that. They are forced collaboration. If a teacher decides not to participate in that, it doesn't go well for the teacher. And so I believe, as a former teacher who used to write her own curriculum and used to plan her own lessons, I believe that when we have teachers who have questions, who want to get the perspective of another teacher, nothing is stopping them. Nothing is stopping that teacher from going out and finding more information, using other people as resources. What you gain is standardization when you have the professional learning communities, and a lot of times the direction, the standardized direction that comes down is from the district. So it's the district that oftentimes controls these PLCs. So much for local control when you have the district who is setting the direction for teachers in their classrooms.
I don't know how many of these we're going to do before we get to audience questions. It's 7:51 right now.
Do one more.
Okay. I think you're first this time, Matt. Math standards are being reviewed by the USBE. Do you align more with how they are, or do you think they need drastic changes?
Hey, thank you. I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier. I think they need drastic changes. We're working on it. I'm working on it currently to have changes. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but as I said before, I believe that early years of mathematics are crucial. I believe that the grammar phase is absolutely crucial to our kids in learning. And when I say grammar, I mean math facts. Let them know what it is so that they can start using it to build logic, right? So they can start understanding. But I don't need to spend 20 minutes on figuring out what plus what equals 20. I just need to hit those math facts hard. So we're making, I should say, I'm working on making drastic changes for the math standards that are coming up. You'll have to hang on to the edge of your seats for more information on when that happens. Thank you for the applause.
Okay, I just have to rebut this. If we need drastic changes in math standards, then why did Member Hymas vote to reject the motion to adopt the California standards, which do focus on math facts, which put algebra back into 8th grade? This is the type of drastic change we need, but we can't have members who are voting against the drastic change and then expect change. And so our current math standards absolutely need fixing. And by the way, full disclosure, I am not a math major, I'm an English major. I'm not the most qualified necessarily to speak to all the changes that need to take place in the math standards, but I understand them from a parental perspective, and I understand what Common Core has done to the teaching of these math standards. And so, you know, if we want drastic change, then we need to vote for drastic change. Thank you.
Yes, I do think that the math standards need to be changed, but I also think the standards always need to be reevaluated and looked at. When I think about my 14-year-old son, he's a very smart child, very brilliant, but he has learned math a very different way than I have. He learns differently than I do. And I think that's where we need to look at the standards, and we need to understand how are our kids learning, what do they need, what's going to support them the best, and on top of that, setting those standards so that our teachers can teach them and help them be successful. So yes, I do think that the standards need to be changed. I don't know about drastic changes, but changed and more beneficial for our students.
Thank you. Yeah, why did I vote not to adopt California? Well, it's easy. I don't want to be California. Yeah, they had some good stuff, absolutely. I can use that. I can use that as a base. We can work on it, do what we need for our kids. But to just grab somebody's work from a decade ago or whatever, I don't know when it was, but 2 decades, I don't know, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to look at things. I'm going to review things. And then I'm going to do what's best for Utah and for what Utah students need.
I'm just going to start with the first one and then I'll pick from the rest of these. It says, what role should the board play in teacher license? And I think it's Monica's turn to start.
So what role should the board play in teacher licensure? At this point, I don't trust this board to play much of a role. I think it's too much, we have too much alignment with national accreditation standards, and teacher licensure needs to change. It needs to change at this very local level, but the board, as it is currently constructed, isn't equipped to necessarily do this. We need change at the board in order to see, I think, more adequate teacher licensure that isn't aligned to, again, these national agendas, to these global agendas that push diversity, equity, inclusion, again, social emotional learning, and this social activism. So I think we need change at the board first, and then we need to go from there. Thank you.
Before I was on the Tooele County School Board, I actually worked for the Tooele County School District for a little bit, and I worked with some of the people or the administrators that worked with licensure and helping teachers get their licenses. That was 6-7 years ago, and there were concerns and issues with licensure then. And they were going through drastic changes then. I don't know how many more times we have to go through all of these changes until we really look at what the problem is. Why are teachers not becoming licensed? Why do people not want to become teachers? How do we recruit teachers and get people into the field where they can be respected and that they can work with our students instead of feeling like they're going through all these changes all of the time and trying to chase after this rabbit at the end of the road that they can never get to.
Yeah, the board's role in teacher licensing, it has to have a role. We have to protect students. Your kids are worth it, right? We have to have things in place. No, it's not perfect. Things keep happening. Teachers keep getting burned out, or else they're not prepared. And a lot of it depends on an individual. And we try hard to do what we can to make sure that they're successful in the classroom. But we have to protect our students. We have to have standards. At the same time, we're suffering from a teacher shortage. Each of you probably have teachers in your neighborhoods that you know about. You probably know good people. You're probably good people who probably do pretty well in the classroom. Sounds like we've already lost a teacher from education. I don't know what she's doing now, but right, we have to do something. So the state board's role is, yeah, we have to make sure that we have good, qualified people in there. Now, is it perfect? No, I don't think so. I think that there's still a lot of work to be done. I've seen a lot of work happen, but we're still on that road to getting better.
Can we start with Monica?
Yeah, we're starting with mine.
All right, the next question is, as an elected official for the state school board, do you have more loyalty to your constituents or towards the National School Board Association and their platforms, and why? Also, what shows that you are loyal to one or the other?
That's a good question. So your loyalty, of course, is always to your constituents. NSBA is an association that's designed to provide different training and classes for school board members to help them understand their roles and to help them understand how to work with constituents, and help them really just to navigate through what it's like to be an elected official. But of course, you know, that's one of the greatest things about being in a rural and smaller community is when you go to the grocery store, you see your constituents. You talk to them, they ask you questions. And I think that's what's important about being an elected official is that you can answer and say why you voted a certain way or why you didn't. And that's what's more important than anything, and that's how you can show, I guess, your loyalty, if you will, to constituents.
Thank you. If I'm honest, I didn't even know what the National School Board Association did until Camille just said it. So thank you for educating me. I don't know what they do. I don't care what they do. We're not a part of them. As far as I understand, Utah's not a part of the National School Board Association. We are? Shows how much I care about the National School Boards Association. I know that we're part of NASB, but anyway, now I'm wasting time. I don't follow them. I don't have any interest in following them. I have no loyalty to them. My constituents, however, I listen to them. I hear them. I've had conversations with them. One even at this table, believe it or not. Well, two at this table. This is who I represent. I represent the families in this District 10. That's where I want to put the work in forward. It's not for a national organization. It's not for any other organization. It's for families. It's for kids. It's for education.
I wouldn't be running for the state school board if I felt like my representative on the board was good at listening to me. I have come with concerns about DEI, and I have been ignored. I go and I speak at the state school board every month, and I bring up these concerning issues. And my comments are well researched, and they are well stated. And never has my representative reached out to me by phone to talk to me about these issues, to ask me why I'm saying these things. Why would I take the time to travel up to the state school board and bring these issues up? The National School Boards Association has an agenda, and what I'm seeing are votes that align with that agenda and not with the concerns of the constituents. I've spoken to many delegates who feel like they are not being heard by their current representation, and I intend to change that. Thank you.
Yeah, we've had a conversation, and I don't put an S on that. We've had a conversation. You know, we do what we can. We're not going to please everybody. It's just not going to happen. There's a lot of voices out there, a lot of voices, and I have to do, in my mind, this is what I've been elected to do, what's best for kids overall. Now, some agree with it, some don't. I can live with that. I've got to do what's best for kids and what's best for their family, that educational experience. So.
All right. The next question is, how would you handle all the federal programs put on the state schools? Matt, I think you first. How would you handle all the federal programs put on the state schools?
You know, when I first got on the state school board, there was conversation about just cutting out all federal funding, what that would look like. We're not there yet, but we would like to be on our own. I would like us to be on our own. There are federal initiatives that unfortunately we have to abide by. So do you, right? But we're working on it. We're working on becoming on keeping our Utah culture. And I'll tell you, it's about. There's no question about it. It's about. And so, in the boardroom and outside the boardroom, there's always discussion on how we can keep our Utah culture and keep things going forward, independent of the federal government.
back in, I believe it was February of 2023, a board member put forth an amendment, a constitutional amendment proposition to make the state free from federal funding in education and put funding solely on the shoulders of the state and its municipalities. And my current representative voted against that amendment. 10% is what our federal funding is in the state of Utah for public education, approximately. Yet that 10% dictates the 90% of everything else that happens in public education. It is so vital and it is so important that we understand the strings that are attached with federal funding. It goes deep and it goes wide. And if we don't do something to push against it, we will never push against it. We keep kicking this can down the road, and it is doing our children a huge disservice. Thank you.
So I'm glad Monica actually brought up some of those statistics because I had not heard the 10% before, and I'd love to actually know where you have that information. When I was on, of course, the Tooele County Board, I had heard that 70% of special education funding comes from the federal government, and something like 90% comes from rural transportation. So I know that we receive quite a bit of money in that aspect, and there's a lot of things as far as the federal government that I know a lot of people would not like to do. For example, special education, you receive $1 million, but you have 30 pages of reports to complete in order to get the $1 million. And in some cases, it's not worth it. But until you can say the majority of the taxpayers are willing to take on that tax burden, I don't know that we're willing to walk away from that federal funds.
Were you mentioned?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I was wondering about the 7%.
Yeah, I believe you also mentioned Matt, so
Okay.
you can respond and then Matt can respond.
Okay, thank you. Previously, historically, it's fluctuated anywhere between 8% and at a peak of around 12% with the COVID funding, with the ESSER funds. And now it looks like we're back to around 10%. But you can find those statistics. They're easily available on any of the federal websites. I believe we have them on Project Kids as well. Our state auditor has those stats. And so, yes, that is where that number comes from. Also, on Title I funding and funding for special ed, again, a lot of those funds, yes, they do come from the federal government, but there's no reason we can't adopt a revenue-neutral plan where we capture our taxes before they go to the federal government, so we can reapply and use those funds here and make up for any shortcoming. 10%, Utahns are used to giving up 10%, right? Let's do it now for our own kids in local education. Thank you.
I don't have a strong rebuttal. We're not there yet. Just like I said, we're not there yet. It takes taxpayers to get involved. It takes legislation. It's more than just me sitting behind the table saying yes or no. We're working on it. We understand your needs. We understand what Utah wants. I'm trying to get us there, but we're not there yet, not in my opinion.
All right, the next question is, our teachers are overworked, are more overworked than ever with more responsibilities and generally less parental support. What plans do you have to help teachers? You can't change pay/district decisions, but what can you change to support and retain quality educators?
Okay, so as a former educator, I didn't have to deal with being any of my students' therapists. I think that's where we need to start, right there. Our teachers need to be able to teach the content subject areas that they are hopefully being trained in, and that they go into teaching to teach because they love these areas. That's very important, but we are asking teachers to do too much. Also, another thing that we can do to help retain teachers is not make, we need to make our behavioral policies less around leniency and more around accountability. That's a huge problem. But at the board, you see a consistent push for leniency policies, including restorative justice, positive behavioral interventions and supports, and multi-tiered systems of supports. These all do a huge disservice to teachers because they don't actually make problems better. And students end up getting away with a lot more than they should in these situations where criminal behavior is concerned. That needs to change. Thank you.
Again, I agree with Monica as far as the behavioral issues and creating policies around the criminal behaviors that some of our classrooms are seeing. When I have reached out and talked to teachers, again, teachers say they just want to teach. They wish that they didn't have the mental health and all the different things that are on their plates. They just want to teach. They also, every teacher I've talked to welcomes every parent into their classroom. They would love to have more parents meet with them, meet with the students, and be part of what is happening in each of their classrooms. And I'd like to see more policies centered around that and helping honestly, our parents and teachers build that collaborative effort together.
So how do we help our teachers? I agree. Accountability is important, absolutely. We need to help teachers have autonomy to work with families and to work with their kids. This is a challenging one because at my school that I run, we work with families when there are issues. We bring in the family to work with them. We don't let students run wild. I don't want to burn out teachers. So we have to be able to set up an environment where the teacher can successfully do their job. When I started teaching, I went in, I didn't realize that teaching was 90% behavior management. I had to learn skills in order to do that. I had to learn how to work with kids, and then the teaching came. So additional training, additional support, helping them, talking to teachers, letting them know that we're there for them. We need this stuff. Not the other side where we just point at them and say, my kid had a problem in school, what are you going to do to fix it? No, we got to change the mindset, not only in our educators to help them, but in our parents to say, no, this is a collaborative effort. We're working together. This isn't a student problem, this is a family problem. Let's work on it. Sorry.
All right, Camille did mention Monica. Did you want to respond?
I thought it was positive, so
It was.
Camille, I appreciate it.
All right, this next question directly addresses Matt Hymas. So, since it's Camille's turn to go first, I will let the two of you decide who actually goes first, and then the other will go second. Okay. All right. I just read in an email from Matt Hymas that he supports parents being primarily responsible for their children's education. I'm wondering why he voted twice to impose limitations on 53G-10-205, which protects parents and children's right of conscience in their schooling.
That's a great question. Right of conscience. Now, I guess I'm assuming the claim is that I'm contradicting. I'm assuming that's what the claim is. Is that I'm kind of, you don't know. I look at you like you know. Right of conscience is so important. I don't believe that any student should have to go against their religious beliefs, morals, any sort of right of conscience. Now, when I vote, or when I say that I support parents, absolutely. When I vote to make a rule, or to support a rule that says parents have right of conscience, what people are reading in there, and I've worked with many people on this, is if a parent decides to take their student out of an assignment, I support that 100%. But should I'm going to bury myself here. I know, I hear the time, but the question was directed at me. Should the individual not do the assignment at all and get participation for doing the assignment? That's the question. That's the question that I had answered. That's a question that you would have to answer, right? So if my right of conscience doesn't go with something, fine, don't do it. But should I, let's say that I don't believe that I should do any sort of history lessons at all. Okay, that's fine. Do you still get a license? Or not a license, I'm sorry, a diploma. Do you still get a Utah diploma? Do you still get credits? Let's just narrow down to there. Do you still get credits, history credits, if your right of conscience says you don't have to do any of those? That's the argument. And they're not saying that you don't have to, that you should do no history at all. That's not what the rule is saying. I don't believe that's what the law is saying. I believe it's saying that you have to, that the educator and the parent have to work together to come up with a different, whether it's assignment or project or whatever, that meets the right of conscience of that family in order to satisfy some requirements. Otherwise, we're just handing out diplomas, right? How are we supposed to educate our kids? Now, teachers, I know I'm still taking time, I'm still here. Teachers mess up. There's no question about that. That teacher may assign something the parent doesn't agree with. Then get out of it as a parent. I support that 100%. Go back to the teacher. If you can't come to a consensus, go to the principal. If you still can't, go to the LEA. There's options for you. But let's not take away somebody's right of conscience. I know, I'm giving you claps and a hurry up here. Okay. I'm done.
How far did we go?
That was about 2 minutes.
This is about 2 minutes. All right, we'll give the other two candidates 2 minutes to respond to this one then.
No, sorry, I could have handed you that. Sorry.
I don't think I'll need 2 minutes for this one. So my question is of course we want to respect a child or a student's right of conscience, but what happened to having a good conversation? Why can't, as a child and a parent, can we sit down with a teacher and say, there's a problem, we need to make a solution, we need to move forward? I don't understand why we need to have a law that says you can't violate my right of conscience. We can have conversations, we're all adults.
There have been a lot of misstatements about what 53G 10205 states. It states that a child or a student's parent may refrain from participating in any activity that violates their conscience or their religious belief. It doesn't say the student gets a free pass. It says the school may offer an alternative that does not violate the student's conscience or the parent's conscience. This is a wonderful and a beautiful bill. It places students' and parents' rights of conscience and religious belief where it belongs, at the very top of constitutional protections. In our state constitution, it says the rights of conscience shall never be infringed, and that perfect toleration of religious sentiment is guaranteed. These are vital protections. These are constitutional rights that you do not shed at the schoolhouse door, nor do your parents shed those either, kids. So what I saw happen was Member Hymas voting for an amendment to a state rule that would have put 14 different criteria that had to be met in providing a reasonable accommodation for student conscience and religious belief before that right of conscience would have been honored. That's not acceptable. That is the state infringing upon conscience and not letting the school work it out with the parents to decide, here's an alternative. Does this work for you? Because there's no point in offering an alternative that continues to violate a student's conscience, is there? That's really not much of a choice for those students or for those parents who may not want to have to violate their conscience as a condition of receiving a public education. That's what happened at the state board. Thank you.
good, doesn't it? Yeah. Votes aren't always black and white, are they? So when I start looking at things and saying, how do we work with parents? Then absolutely. There's got to be something there, because I'm not just going to say to a student or to a family necessarily, you don't want to do it, don't do it, I'll give you 100%. I mean, personally, I don't care. But not all the schools are going to be on board. So, again, right of conscience, support it 100%. If you don't want to do it, you don't get the credit for it. This is logical thinking, nothing new. If you don't want to do it, you don't get the credit for it. However, if you do want to do something, then let's talk about what that looks like. And there might be some steps involved. So, yes, absolutely. I support the law. I will do what I can to support families. And I want them to get the education that they are seeking. Sometimes we have to do things in order to get the help that we need.
All right, so you each have 2 minutes to give your final remarks.
I opened, or Monica.
I started.
Monica started.
Where do you want to go?
So let's go in the reverse order of what we did when we did the opener. So Matt, you will go first, Camille will go second, and then Monica will go last.
Perfect. Thank you. First off, it's been a pleasure to be here tonight. I understand that the audience here is invested in education. I appreciate that, regardless of where your votes go. The fact that you are here tonight says big things, and I thank you for that. Again, I want to thank the Utah County GOP for putting this on as well. I want to finish by reiterating, I love education. Clearly, education has been my life and will continue to be my life, regardless of the outcome. I love education. I cannot express to you the importance of this work. It is not filled with half-truths and zero context. It is filled with people who do the work, whether it's behind the scenes, and sometimes you might see it at board meetings. But it demands time and attention. This is about your kids and what their future will look like. My mission is simple. It is to provide local parents and leaders, local control, local parents and leaders, the ability to educate their students according to the needs of those within their communities. You, in your community, have that authority. My objectives are to serve the diverse educational needs of families, empower local families and professionals who best understand the needs of their students, and improve feedback. You will notice that each one of these objectives are geared towards serving you and your children. We share a common goal in this, and that is to provide the best education possible for your kids. Vote for Matt Hymas. And I will continue to do all within my power to strengthen your schools, your communities, and the education of your children. Thank you.
As Matt said, I'm grateful to be here tonight as well, and thank you for hosting us and having us here. So I know I attended one of the Meet the Candidates nights, but I haven't been able to attend a couple of the others, just with family obligations and other things going on. So I've really enjoyed having the discussion and being able to answer all of the questions, and hopefully I've been able to help you guys understand more about me and who I am as a candidate. I would like to take my experience on a local school board and take that on the state level. I feel that the state school board has been very ineffective the last 3 or 4 years, and I think it's time that we readjust those cells and we help them understand what their role is and support our local school board members in the decisions and working with all of our community members. Yeah, I guess, so I just want to end with, I hope that if you guys have more questions, feel free to reach out to my website. It's just camilleforschoolboard.com, or you can call me. I believe in open communication and collaboration. And I'm happy to sit down with any of you and further have more conversations about any of the topics we had tonight. Thank you.
We do have a lot of bad programs, policies, practices, and processes that are coming straight from the top, straight from the State Board of Education. And that is why I am running for State Board District 10. I have not just given lip service to protecting the rights of parents and the preeminence of a parent in a child's life and education. I have put myself out there as a private citizen. And as I said before, I've given thousands and thousands of volunteer hours to this cause for my children, for my sister's children, for my brother's children, and for yours. It's very, very important that we stop and we look at what's happening in the schools, and things are kind of spiraling out of control. Public education is out of control in the same way that a car is out of control if it can't stay in its own lane. Our schools are trying to do too much, and they're not doing any of it very well. If we can't refocus on foundational academics and prioritize those first, if we can't respect conscience in our classrooms, if we cannot protect our children from exploitation, and if we cannot restore the proper role of schools, then we are failing our kids, and that is unacceptable. I hope to serve you as I have been serving you for the past 2.5 years, with many sleepless nights, but with a firm conviction that if our children can become the intelligent, informed, inspired, and intellectually strengthened children that we need them to be, we will have the purpose of education fulfilled. And that is really what we're here about today. We need kids who can be independent, who can be self-governing. My name is Monica Wilbur, and I ask for your support coming up at convention and also at the primaries. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to thank the candidates for answering our questions and for all of you for submitting terrific questions. Just as a reminder, and Christy kind of alluded to this, these folks are going to be running in the state convention on April 27th. If you are a state delegate within District 10, then you will be able to vote for one of these 3 folks at the convention. And yeah, we'll just wrap it up. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.